Hey, Doug, somebody writes in to ask, they say, I've watched enough Ask Dougs to know that you have criticisms of things like personality tests and the like. But what I want to know is what you would recommend for books on the topic of human beings 101. Where do I go to learn how to read the room, not to presume upon motivations, but to read them as best I can? I assume this is a faculty that novelists or pastors exercise, but how can a layman grow in this area?
Okay, so I'm going to give a entry-level answer, which might sound like I'm being cute with it, but not really.
Okay.
And then go a little deeper. The first thing you need to learn, the first thing you need to read to get up to speed on this would be Winnie the Pooh. So everything you would ever want to know about personalities and personality tests is there in Winnie the Pooh.
So you are okay with the personality test?
Yeah, it's just got to be sensible, like
It's
like
got to
Winnie
be as
the
sensible
Pooh.
as Winnie the Pooh. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got your Poohs, and you've got your piglets, and you've got rabbits, who take charge of everything, and you've got Tigger, the bouncy Tigger, and Eeyore, right? So you've got those are the basic personality
Those are the
types.
fundamental.
Those are the
building blocks.
fundamental.
Okay.
Everybody you meet is going to be somewhere on that grid, and of course the occasional Kanga. So everybody in the history of the world with eyes in their head has been able to see that some people are introverted and shy, and other people are extroverted and outgoing, and some people are alpha take charge types. And so all the different kinds of personality tests are playing off of that common sense realization that everybody has.
So why the hate on personality tests then?
Because they try to make a science out of it, and they try to add the decimal points.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I'm 2/3.
Yeah.
I'm 2/3 this and 1/3 that. That's like saying I'm 1/5 Tigger and
Right.
come on. Basically, there's a difference between studying men and getting to know them.
Yeah.
And so people are you can't define a person or a personality type the same way you define a triangle. Defining a triangle is really easy.
Very scientific.
It's precise. There are never any exceptions, and it's just there. It's just there. So the first thing is it's getting to know people and doing it with the common sense approach, and understanding that the essence of the thing can be captured by a children's novelist, right? And Winnie the Pooh is great because it can be read with pleasure by kids and also by the adult who's reading it, because there's a bunch of humor that would go right over the kids' heads. So that's there are different personality types. There is a book by O'Halsby, who's an evangelical Lutheran guy from decades ago, who wrote a book called Christian Temperament, or it's on temperaments and the Christian faith. But he's riffing off of the classic ancient Greek categorization of phlegmatic,
The humors.
the humors, yeah, melancholic, choleric, phlegmatic, and sanguine. And sanguine is Tigger, phlegmatic is Pooh, melancholic is Eeyore, and what was the other one? Piglet. No, not Piglet. Choleric is Rabbit. Okay. So, and so what he does is he takes that grid, which is a common sense breakdown. You just dispense with the mechanism of the humors.
Yeah.
We know it's not blood and it's not phlegm and it's not. That's not what causes it. But we all know people who fall into those basic categories, and so Halsby writes from that perspective. But I'm just not. I don't like the way it makes us put people in boxes. Okay, you're this, and therefore.
Yeah, nobody behaves and stays in that box.
Or some people insist on staying in that box because I'm a phlegmatic. I don't have to do what Jesus said.
Yeah, because I took a test that says.
Yeah, it's like a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Right now, but then the second part of the question is
Yeah.
how do you figure people out? How do you figure people out?
Uh-huh.
If you first accept the rudimentary common sense thing that A.A. Milne had or O'Hallisby, but if you really want to understand how people tick, you mentioned novelists and pastors.
Yeah.
Understanding this, one of the things to do is to read novelists, read people who have
What novelists do you think have done the best job of unpacking a character or helped you understand what people are like?
Shakespeare would be one. Okay. And one of the people he's not a novelist, but René Girard is a French intellectual. He wrote a book called In the Theater of Envy. And what he does is breaks down all of Shakespeare's plays, describing the decision-making mechanism that makes people do what they do.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Girardian approach is one that sees mimetic rivalry as being central to the human experience.
Okay.
So we're not independent monads making decisions based upon innate desires. So for Girard, basically, this is my breakdown. This is my application of it. All of us have desires that have nothing to do with anybody else. You know, the itch between your shoulder blades, or being thirsty, or being hungry. That's not a social thing. But the reason why a woman might buy a dress that her next door neighbor just bought, or a man might buy a car that his rival at the company just bought, that's mimetic envy. That's mimetic rivalry. Yeah. And that is something that transcends personality types. And when you're looking at the decisions people make and the conflicts they get into, people get into conflicts because of their similarities, not because of their dissimilarities. We've been conditioned to think that we could eliminate world conflict if we just had more international food fairs, or if we had more exchange programs but the most vicious wars are the civil wars. And conflicts arise out of similarities, where people have the same desire, the same kind of goal, the same motivation. Two guys interested in the same girl.
Right.
Conflict. Great novelists, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Shakespeare, people who write fiction that has traction, that has staying power, are novelists or creatives who have tapped into something that represents the way people actually are. If you have a novel that just has two-dimensional figures glued to popsicle sticks, and then you're moving them around, someone might read a book like that to kill time on a plane, but it's not going to become a classic ever. So pastors should read, I would say, great novels. I think they should study their people, get to know their people, as opposed to just observing them and not thinking about it. And I think they should read people like C.S. Lewis, like René Girard, who do a marvelous job. C.S. Lewis would be the Screw Tape Letters would be a great example of how Lewis was not a morbid introspectionist. I would call him a sunny introspectionist, a cheerful introspectionist.
Okay.
But he can slice motivations for actions lengthwise, and do it without being morbid. Yeah. So Lewis is great. Girard is great. Great novelists.